Janey Brown, how are you today? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It is great to be here.
And I am super excited to have you back on for a second time with zero technical difficulties, and for part two of this episode, Janey, if you can give the listeners a couple of seconds, a little bit of a introduction to who you are and kind of what makes you so special.
Well, I guess who I am is a singer, performer, wellness expert, and performance mindset coach in a nutshell. I have been performing for 20 years, every single year of since I was 10 years old, basically. Well, I just gave away my age. And then I started my wellness career teaching like hundreds of people in wellness, like leading hundreds of individuals and groups in wellness, fitness, yoga, meditation over the last 11 years or so. So, yeah, that's basically my background. And about 6 months ago, I decided that these just having two careers so segregated was exhausting. Like I did it for 10 years and to have both of them and it just kind of I was done with it. I was like, I need to figure out how to merge these two. And so I came up with the idea to take everything I knew about the nervous system and breathing and meditation and mindfulness and mental health and then also everything I knew about performance and stage fright. And I chose all into one type program called the Performance Mindset Program. And that is how I decided to merge my careers. So that's
That
basically a little bit about me.
That's awesome. We can definitely actually dive into that program a little bit later. I want to ask you, though, when we go back into the beginning of when you decided to make music such a big part of your life, talk to us a little bit about when you were coming up and you were when you were a kid. I mean, you were so used to the stage, and
Yeah.
you have definitely a unique situation. Talk to us a little bit about your childhood and how music had such a big influence on you.
Oh man. See, it's so funny because people are always like, "What do you know?" And it was just this thing that was in me. It was just this thing that developed. It wasn't like a defining moment.
Right.
I think when I started performing, so I lived in the country. It's like 3.5 hours outside of Toronto, Ontario, and it's a small town called Brockville. And then I lived like 5 minutes outside of that called Maitland. Anyway, in our house, like we have big yards in the country, and it's not like in the city where it's a patch of grass
Yeah,
and
right.
enough for a dog to poop on, and that's it. You know what I mean? So we had a big front yard, and then our porch it looked like a stage, like straight up. It was literally it came out from the house and it was flat and there was no railing. It was a straight up stage.
Right.
And so how I started was with some of my friends in the neighborhood, we decided to do plays and we would like go around the neighborhood and hand out invitations and then people would come with their lawn chairs and like we'd make popcorn for them and they'd pay like $3 and there'd be like 50 people in my front yard watching us perform. And so we did that for a couple of years, maybe when I was from 7 to 9. And then by age 10, my mom was like, okay, I think this is something that you need to explore in a broader spectrum. And so I got put into an audition for like a public production that was running in my small town of Brockville. And for 10 years after that, I was, or I guess it was 8 years, I would perform every single summer in professional musical theater productions until I left the small town and moved to the big city. So there wasn't just a defining moment. It was something it was just me. It was all I knew. It was all I wanted to know. It was all I thought I could ever be. And yeah, so that's just all I did. That
Do
was
you
just me.
do you consider that a more of a definition of who you are versus what you do, or is it something that you just love to do that you said I'm going to become that one day?
Mhm.
If
Who
that
you
makes
are
sense. That was
versus
a
what
weird
you
question.
do. No, I feel like I understand it. I'll try to answer, and then if I don't, you just tell
No,
me.
no, no.
Um, okay, this is what I always say, and I don't know if this is touching on what you're accessing
Yeah.
here, but I always say I never struggled because I was an artist. I was an artist because I struggled.
Right.
And I had a certain amount of struggle in my childhood. I had a certain amount of trauma that I was exposed to. And I think that that all played a role in what I felt I needed to do to heal and to survive. So in a way, it was like who I was because I needed that to live. But on the other hand, there, you know, the logical sort of more mental side of it is like, okay, well, if this is what I need to survive, then I have to be successful. Like I have to become this,
Right.
and I have
Right.
to be huge.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? So
Right.
that was kind of my mentality around it. Um, you know, and obviously it's not all just like, oh, I had trauma, so you know, this was what I resorted to. It was like I truly loved it and
Right.
love it, and it's just in my soul. Like I mean, when I'm going through something or when I'm happier, like my heart just makes me sing. It
Right.
just is
Right.
what it
Right.
is, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I no, that's literally exactly what I was going after. It was, you know, basically there are so many people because when I look at my life, I know that so I define myself as a performer, but like, you know, I'm my craft is, you know, professional euphonium player. Okay, that's maybe not necessarily what I was meant to do or supposed to do, but I know that I'm at least halfway there in the fact that I'm supposed to be performing somehow. And I knew that actually way later in life, and I just happened to go down that direction
Mm.
of you know, going to music school, blah blah blah, and do all the thing. And I'm just always interested in people that have these kind of realizations in their beginnings. You know, when I was in, you know, fourth and fifth grade, I was on stage. You know, I wasn't as early as you, but it's that we start to realize like, all right, this is a thing that I like to do, and this may be a
Yeah.
thing that I can do, but either way, I'm going to continue doing this because I have to. You know, so
Mhm.
I'm always
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that transition, you know, for me, it happens in high school, and I feel like a lot of, you know, big things in high school happen to, you know, performers and music students. Can you talk to us a little bit about like your high school experience, about when you decided, okay, like, yeah, I'm going to be an actress, I'm going to be an actor, I'm going to be a singer, whatever, like,
Yeah.
and how that whole part of your life went?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because I never not knew that I was going to do this, and I never not like it was never an option to do anything else.
Right.
Um, I think just the difference was the extent that I needed it to be back then versus now was there was a little bit of a difference there, and that back then it was like I need to be like like a global sensation. Like I
Right.
had to
Right.
be a rock star. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like that is what it's going to be. Like it has to be that way. There's no other option. And there's a lot of different psychological reasons that somebody feels they need that level of success and that level of and that level of just exposure to different countries, like whatever it is. There's
Right.
all kinds of reasons. But now, now to your point, I really truly realize that, you know, I've been through the label thing. I've been through the ups and downs of just just the whole industry.
Right.
And now I'm in a place where it's like, okay, I don't want that anymore, but I will always do this because I have to.
Right.
It's not even a need anymore. It's not even survival. It's just like I have to because it's in me to do it. And
Right.
it's like if it doesn't come out, it's a waste of creativity. And that's not benign, actually. But in high school, there was a little bit of a shift because when you're a kid and you get on stage, there's a certain level of just ignorance to what can happen
Yeah.
if you mess up, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're just fearless. And I was fearless, and there was, you know, obviously get a little bit of nerves or butterflies as they call it. But when it came into high school, and I merged into high school, and my first year of high school, I actually had to do a bunch of shows throughout the actual school day. And so I'd come in like, you know, halfway through the school day, and kids would kind of be like, why does she get to like bail
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
class? Like, what is this? You know what I mean? And, you know, I could never really do like the things that they were doing on the weekends and stuff because I was always in rehearsals and always on stage. And so like there was just this weird feeling that I was getting in it. And it's a small town too. So kids are mean and stuff gets around, and you know what I mean? And so in high school, I was very, very self-conscious of, oh, like I'm different and I don't really want to be like, I don't want to be alone. It's not even, it wasn't even like I'll sacrifice this anymore. It was like, I just don't want to be left out. You know
Right.
what I mean? So I kind of, there was a shift there, and yeah, that was kind of the beginning of when I experienced stage fright.
That was very, very awesome. Actually, very well said, and that's a good transition. I can actually kind of ask you about. So, you experienced some stage fright in high school. When did that continue, or did that or did that subside? Or let's dive into a little bit about and how you were able to conquer your own stage fright.
Yeah. So, okay, so it started to shift. So when I got into high school, there was that whole self-conscious thing, and like you're, exposed to
Absolutely.
drugs and
Yeah,
partying, and
yeah.
there's that whole thing, right? And I got into this space where I was actually supposed to go to an all performance school, like maybe my second year of high school. My parents just saw me kind of plummet a little, and they were like, why don't we take you to, like a performance school? You can sleep, it's a boarding school.
Real quick.
Yeah.
That's why you have awesome parents, because they recognize your talents and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's. You know what I mean? That's awesome. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It was awesome. They were honestly so supportive. People always ask me all the time, like, was your mom forceful? Was your dad forceful? Like, no. Like, they knew what I wanted and they just helped me try to do it. Like that was the end of it. And they just bent over backwards for me in that regard. So yeah, when they said that, it was like, okay, like, why don't you go here? And it was just, it's actually like one friend said to me, they were like, well, if you go there and it doesn't work out, like, don't expect us to be around when you get back. I know. I know. I've
Oh,
never forgotten it. Like, I know that
wow.
it's like, it's kids, and that's just kids.
No,
It's
right, 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 right.
like, but for where I was and how vulnerable I was in, just in where I was in my life for
Sure.
all kinds of reasons, I couldn't go. Like, my stage fright and my fear of failing and my fear of being alone just held me back. And I wasn't mature enough to make that decision on my own. And unfortunately, my parents they were like, it's up to her. Like, we don't want to, they don't want to be those stage
Yeah,
parents.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like forcing your kid to go, even though if they had, I would have been better off. You know what I mean? But so the transition, so that's kind of like, that was the start of it. And for me, I was like, okay, well, I don't really know if I want to do musical theater performance anymore. I really am loving like this whole pop thing and this R&B thing and the Christina Aguilera,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and Mariah
Yeah,
Carey.
sure.
Mariah Carey's like Honey Days, and when she like transitioned into R&B, and I was like, I want to start doing that. So
Great.
I went from, like, picture this, you're in a huge cast with a huge team with people all around you that are just like you. And then you merge from that to just you on stage alone with literally a background tape playing for you to sing over top of. And you have stage fright and you're self-conscious and you're singing in front of your entire student body. Like, instead of the public, instead
Yeah.
of the city, you're
Right.
singing for your student body. Like, so I think that is where things started to malfunction for me. And unfortunately and fortunately, my survival, so fight, flight, or freeze, it's something I talk about a little bit in the performance mindset program. It's a physiological response of the nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, it's the part of the nervous system that makes us experience adrenaline, and like, it's our response to fear, basically.
Right.
And it's fight, flight, or freeze. And my modality of, like, what I resort to when I get into that space is fight. I don't run. I don't necessarily freeze. I just fight through it. I just keep trucking.
Right.
And so, as much stage fright as I had, I just kept getting on stage. I just kept getting out there, which is good. But the problem was nothing was being addressed about how much turmoil I was in. Like, I would have literally at 15 mental breakdowns before I would go on stage, like, just in shambles in the corner.
Right.
And just no one even knew. Like, my parents had no idea.
Right. Because they
But
saw you on stage rocking it, and then you were like,
That's
in the right, right. Wow.
That's right. And so these butterflies turned into, one of my clients says, it's not butterflies, it's like little mini vampire bats with like machine guns. And I'm like, that's so true. When when it goes from butterflies to that, you're in trouble,
Right.
So the problem is because I'm so hard-headed, and because my modality was to fight instead of freeze or run off, I was never publicly embarrassed. I always crushed it on stage. I always slayed. Everyone always said how good of a job I did and how amazing I was. And so there was nothing for me to work on. I felt like hell after, but I was like, oh, well, like, I did a good job. Like, that means success.
Right.
But the problem is that throughout my life, I
It's
was
compounding.
losing quality of life, and
Mm.
I had an anxiety disorder in life. It wasn't just on stage. So the quality of life dwindled because I wasn't actually addressing the fact that I was deeply afraid. And the bigger problem was that in that world, I mean, like you just said it before we got on stage, we didn't have like we didn't even have Facebook
Right,
back then.
right, right,
You know what
right,
I mean?
right,
Like internet was new. It was still dial up, like
right. Yeah.
like someone picks up the phone and it's done. Like we didn't have online coaches.
Right,
No, and there was no like performance mindset coach in this small town of Brockville, Ontario.
right.
You know what I mean? So the mentality around being afraid to get on stage was like if you're afraid to get on
Then
stage,
you can't do it.
like you shouldn't be here.
Hmm.
Someone else will take your job. Like it's just not for you. And that is so far from the truth. And this is what I'm trying to tell people is it's just because you're afraid doesn't mean you're in the wrong path. It means you need to face your fears so
Right.
that you can become more fierce. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. There are so many different paths I can take this conversation.
Yeah, I know.
Really no. You shed so much fantastic light on what it really means to have stage fright, or just fear in general, or just anxiety, or whatever it is. And I love
Yeah.
the fact that because most people don't have your experience where it was kind of flip flopped. On
Yeah.
stage you were great, and then off stage, you were having these fears and having these situations that that you were asking yourself what is going on, and then ultimately you're saying that situation led to just almost offstage fear and offstage
Yeah.
anxiety and
Yeah.
issues in your own life and quality of life, which is so incredible because I think that is where you have such a great you're so in tune to yourself, because most performers and most musicians, they're just in tune to their abilities and their what they do on stage and how often they practice. Like they don't really care about their quality of life, and
Right. Right.
that's so because they're doing it for their craft, and it's like,
Yeah, and I
guys,
didn't either. I thought it was normal. I was like,
right,
this is
right,
just what you have to go through. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like, not true.
Now, with that being not true, so we mentioned the quality of life, and something that you are really an expert in is the yoga training. So let's kind
Right.
of I want to shift into when you really started getting into health and fitness, and how that ultimately affected your performance, and or if it was the cure, or at least the beginning of the cure to your offstage anxiety and your offstage quality of
Mhm.
life.
So I was always an athlete as a kid. I started gymnastics at 5 and then went into competitive gymnastics and then started kickboxing at age 10 and did that for 8 years until I got my black belt. And there was always just this component of physical activity or physical endurance that needed to be had, whether it be like soccer or just training for a musical theater production that was coming up, whatever it was, that it was always a must. It was always, I had to be in shape. I had to have good lungs. I had to be active to be healthy for the stage. And I also just enjoyed doing things like kickboxing and going through the different belt grading systems and stuff. In, so in my years of high school, like as I said, I basically did, I think, 8 years or so of musical theater productions. They were all professional. However, I was an amateur actress slash singer that was brought on to be involved. And then at 18, after 1 year of college, I was the only kid in my program who actually got hired for me to be a professional in a professional musical theater production. And at that time, as I said, I'd already been shifting into this place where I was like, I want to be a solo artist, and I started singing solo and whatever. After I did the musical theater production and we toured for the whole summer and stuff, I was like, I can't go back to school. Like this is not the life that I want. I love performing, I love singing, but I just know I don't want to be in musical theater, and it was just the only option after I got out of high school. So that's why I ended up in the program. So I dropped out of high school, and it was sort of like, or not high school, I dropped out of college. I just did 1 year of college, and it was sort of like this reality check of like, cool. So if you want to be a solo artist, you have to like write songs, you know? So I spent, like 6 months, like, basically tinkering away on my piano, like alone in my, it was pretty grim, actually. It was a big reality check. And, I got some good material, but it was very new to me. I hadn't, I'd only been in the studio like once. And it was just for a demo, and it didn't even really work out. And so it was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, I got this opportunity to move to Toronto and work with a producer, actually Socrates. He's like a Canadian vet as far as like producing and rapping goes. And he's worked with a lot of different artists in Canada. And so I got this opportunity to work with him. And then that led me to be able to move to Toronto and start my life here. And when I came here, so as I said, I was a kickboxer for 8 years, and I was used to this like rough, like hole in the wall sort of training where it's like really intense and like you don't talk back to your coaches. And even though I did all the time, and like you have a coach in your ear being like, don't you dare give up, like keep going, like that kind of thing, like where it's like really, really about discipline, and really it's a life skill. It's not just like fitness. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I had just gotten my black belt before I moved to Toronto, and I was in pursuit of something like that. And I didn't find it because it's just not the way the city works. Sure. And instead it was like these big group X classes where it's like a one size fits all, and like there's got to be like a certain amount of like safety that's really pushed, and which is fair. But that was the only thing that I found that could keep me focused on what I wanted to do while keep me in shape. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this. Like I can't be bothered going to every single dojo in the city and being disappointed. That was my
right.
So I was like, whatever. So after a certain amount of time of doing that, this actually turned into a really long story. I'm sorry.
No, please continue.
After discovering that and doing that for a while, I just at one point had my teacher come up to me, and she was like, I've been seeing you in class. I know that you've taught before because you had to teach to get your black belt. Like, I know that you're capable of this. Like, do you mind subbing for me? I know you don't even have your cert right now, but can you just, like, I'm in a bind. Can you just sub my class? And I was like, sure, why not? And that was the beginning of like basically going, okay, well, wait a second here. I don't have to just serve tables to make money in between studio time. I can make money actually physically keeping my body in check and physically helping other people help themselves at the same time as doing what I'm doing. Right. And so it just snowballed after that into an actual career. Like it was like a side thing at first, and it was cool. And then it went from like, it was like group X to spinning to yoga to yoga to, now I'm teaching corporate meditation and all that kind of stuff. So that's how the career began. That's how it exploded. And I can honestly say that. So do you want me to go deep for a sec?
Please.
And this is where the story takes a turn.
Okay.
So that's great. I'm doing my music. I'm working on that. That's a whole other story. I'm going through the motions and labels and different genres. And then on the side note, I'm excelling. I mean, in this fitness career. I mean, like my classes are packed. I have 17 classes a week all over the city. Like I'm just slammed. Right. And, this thing is developing and growing and it's just exploding. And I literally, for the longest time, had so much shame around the fact that my fitness career, my yoga career was taking off, because it felt like it was a direct reflection of the failure and the lack that I was seeing in my music career. So and the problem is that I still hadn't seen that I had stage fright.
Right.
So it was like, that started in high school, and at 24, I was still struggling with it. You know what I mean? So like for 10 years. And so there was all this complicated mindset around what fitness and wellness meant to me and how it was taking away from what I was supposed to be doing and what I should have been doing, and how I'm slacking because I'm so exhausted from teaching. You know what I mean? It was just such a poor mindset at the time. And eventually I saw the light, and I was like, wait a second. These two things are not binary. Right. It is just in my head, excuse me, that I think I need to be at some elite skyrocketed level to be successful and to be taken seriously and to be happy. Like, I mean, this is just ridiculous. So I was like,
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That is, and I remember you mentioning that is the thing with so many people, let alone performers and musicians and artists. That is like putting yourself in a box that doesn't even exist is the biggest detriment to your success, because you're just holding yourself back. The problem is that we're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
Most people, aren't aware of it until they've, had a certain amount of, whether it's struggle or a certain amount of conflict, or just this, until that's literally, I resonate with that so much. So thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of people need to hear about the fact that when they have a script written for their life and their life is not matching that script, that's where the inner conflict comes up. And,
Absolutely.
I'm sure one of the things that you are about, and not necessarily throwing out the script, but, rewriting it and really making sure that you're living your life and living your life as a performer or as a artist the way you want to live it and what works best for you. I mean, there's no, as you said, it's not binary. So now, is this something like you teach in the program, or is that just for you?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, you just said awareness. That the interest, like how I developed the program. So obviously my wellness background and all the stuff with the nervous system and everything I mentioned before, and then all my performance background. But I looked at, so you're saying, like, how did you overcome your stage fright? And the first thing that I always say is, you can't overcome stage fright, you can manage it. So we'll start there. But what I did was I looked at what I did in order to manage it, like where I got to a place where I could be like, wow, I feel powerful again, and I'm not afraid. Like, I'm afraid, but I'm okay. Like, I can manage this fear. I'm courageous with this fear instead of I'm completely swallowed by this fear. I did three things. I first had to become aware of it, like you just said. I had an idea that I was afraid. I just wasn't willing to accept how afraid I was. You know what I mean? I was in complete denial about how much it was affecting me, how much it was affecting my relationships, my life, just the quality of who I was as a person. So the first thing was I had to develop awareness, and that's where mindfulness and meditation comes into play.
Right.
The second thing I had to do was I had to accept it. Because you can be aware of something and not accept it and deny it. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that's always a component it's missing, I find, in a lot of people's teachings, is like awareness, and then you can change. It's like, actually, you need to have awareness, and then you need to be able to accept yourself, where you're at, the failures you've had around it, all the loss that you feel like you've had from not figuring it out sooner, everything, regret, all of that. You have to just be able to be in a place where you accept everything that you are, the positives and negatives, the things that you've been able to overcome and the things that you haven't, right here and right now. So acceptance is the next step. And that's what I had to do. I had to be like, I accept that X, Y, and Z led to this, and I gave up that opportunity, and I lost here, and I'm okay. Like, this is who I am, and I'm going to move forward. And then the third thing is adjustment. And so these are the three A's, the trifecta, or trifecta, as I call it. These are the three A's in the program, is that is what you need to do to change, is awareness, acceptance, and then adjustment. And that's where the change happens. So my adjustments were just everything, my mindset. That was it. It was like, I need to adjust my entire mindset. And that came with, basically mentors, meditation, breath exercises, like every tool in the book is what I incorporated to get better. And that's what I'm offering in my program. Did
you find that those tools were you said meditation, being a healthy person, being a fit person, do you feel like those were the biggest breakthroughs that you've had in the adjustment period, or was there something else that you used? Because it's funny, because I think of,
fair.
A lot of times I think of the three steps, also as maybe on a very specific granular level. So if someone's looking to make one little improvement in their sight reading ability or whatever, they can still go through those three steps, which is interesting,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Very cool. So Jane, if you want to riff a little bit about kind of a little more details about the program, kind of what it's like and the details, and maybe just tell us a little bit more about the actual program.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I say is that when it comes to adjustment, everyone, like right down to our DNA, we're different. So everybody's going to need a different adjustment modality. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's never I'm just going to meditate every day and it's going to fix all my problems. It's like you might, I mean, and I go through this in my program, like all the different things you can do to adjust. But the main things that I use as tools for adjustment are meditation techniques, breathing techniques, mindfulness techniques, journaling, like, is a big one. Understanding how to properly implement daily habits, because the thing that people don't understand is that who you are on the stage is who you are off the stage is who you are on the stage again. So you don't just like have a stressed out life and you're a basket case and then 5 minutes before you want to meditate and it's going to be all good. It's like you need to balance your nervous system long before that. You know what I mean? You need to be able to reduce stress in your life, and change the way that you think about life in your life, let alone just changing the way you think about performing. So it's really important to intermesh these lifestyle habits that are going to support a healthier mind, a healthier body, a healthier nervous system if you want to see improvements in your performance. To be honest, the performance is secondary. It's like what you're doing is you're improving who you are holistically as a person, and that by default is going to improve your performance. And I'm giving you performance techniques. There's that. But I'm saying, like, it starts with you as a person and how whole you become on your journey with this shift. So those are the things that I give. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. I find that so interesting because from the classical world that I come from, there's so many people that are really in need of your program because they don't understand. So they have their trumpet, they have their violin, and they believe that the music. I don't believe it, but on such a subconscious level, that's what makes the music and that's what makes the sound. And it's like,
my God,
not at all. So I think a lot of people that are in other genres of music, a little more of a holistic performance based, whether they're an actor, so they can actually, they have their dance and their body, connected a little more in their role of their career. But, so it might be easier for them. But I think if you guys play an actual, a physical instrument, I think this is one of those things where, you don't understand. It's hard to understand that the holistic you is the performer. That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
Same person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's not, like, if you could scrape by like I did, do you know what I mean? Like, so performance anxiety manifests in two ways. One, you publicly fail and it sucks and you feel ashamed.
Right.
There's that. Two, you succeed and you feel like hell afterwards. And if you can scrape by and like do great, cool. But you're not going to have the quality of life that you want. It's going to come out in your relationships. It's going to come out in other ways. And it did for me. Yep. It took a very, very big event to really just go like, you need help, dude. Like,
right.
You need to fix this, you need a cure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's something, you just nailed it, because that was one of the most, I think it was in 2012, I lost my voice. I was signed at the time and I lost my voice for like 8 months, like completely, like didn't know if I was going to sing again. There was that whole thing. And at that time, I had to go through vocal therapy and like speech pathology. And the woman that took me through the exercises she was also very holistic. It wasn't just about here's the technique. It was like, what are you feeling emotionally right now? Like, do you need to cry? You know what I mean?
Right.
Kind of thing. And I really in those sessions understood that your voice is an extension of who you are. It's not this thing that it's not this external thing that you
vibrate together
and emulate into what you think it should sound like. Right. It's something that comes up through you, all the things that you're holding on to, and comes out the way that it needs to, dependent on your disposition.
That's good. That's real good. That's awesome. Yeah,
I know. Don't tell me that's true. Then it means I have to do a shitload of work.
No. It's no. I mean, but hey, listen. I think, I think everything you're talking about, everything you're preaching, is just so vital and so important, and just so true. And there's, I think, so many people that need this either awakening or this help through the process.
Yeah.
If for me, I would definitely, if you're thinking, if you're listening to this and thinking about, taking action, definitely looking at Janey's performance mindset program. It's a big help, and I think for anybody listening, I think for any performer, you'll get a tremendous value out of it. Can you give us a little bit of details if you happen to know about like when this is starting and how that works?
Yeah, so right now I have launched on the website, janeybrown.com/coaching-programs. I'll send that to you later.
Okay.
I have on
Put that
the
in the show
website
notes.
the pricing, and you can sign up right now. It's early bird pricing until April 3rd, and then April 3rd to the 9th, it becomes full pricing. And it starts April 10th. So Monday,
Gotcha.
April 10th is the first day, and then we do it for 5 weeks. It's module 1 through 5,
Gotcha.
1 a week. And basically how it's delivered is it's like a 7 to 10 page PDF of the information that you need in order to succeed. And then there's a lot of tools, performance tools, mindfulness, meditations, and then there's some journaling exercises that are really there to help you become aware of what's going on for you. So people think that the hardest thing to do is face their fears. It's actually to see your fears. Yeah. Because fears are so good at hiding because they make you feel afraid. Right. You don't look at them. You don't want to look at them if you do see them, and you bury them. So this whole program is about gaining more self-awareness of what's going on for you so that you can change the things that aren't working for you anymore. Yeah. And so that you can have more self-acceptance of who you are and live more truly in the moment. If you can't accept yourself, you can't live in the moment.
And that right there, folks, is a great place to wrap up. Janey, I want to thank you so much for shedding so much beautiful and valuable light to performers in any light, whether it be a musician or even, even a CEO or whatever, a high performer in any regard. Yeah. Really wonderful information, and really, what a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure talking to you. I'm glad we got to hang out a second time.
Let's hope for a third. Janey, thank you so much.
Thank you.